Alrighty, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here today on this session on decreasing planning efforts and reducing food waste with both Delicious Data, represented by Jacob, and Porsche, so as presented by Patrick and Ulf. For your information on the right, for those that are new, there is, it says session at the top, and below there's 4 options: chat, polls, Q&A, and people. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat and we'll be happy to take them and answer them later. Other than that, I will right away hand it over to the teams. I don't know who's starting, who's kicking it off, and looking forward to an exciting session with all of you.
I'm going to start. Thank you, Leah. Hello everyone, and welcome to our session, How Delicious Data Helps Porsche to Decrease Planning Efforts and Reduce Food Waste in staff restaurants with artificial intelligence. My name is Patrick Gehr. I'm a project manager at Porsche for HR digitalization and new technologies. And with me today is Ulf Schnorr, who's head of catering in Weissach, and Jakob Bräuninger, co-founder of Delicious Data. Today we would like to present how and why we are at Porsche implementing a sales forecast in our restaurants to better plan what the restaurants provide and to reduce environmental impact of wasted food and the use of portable water. The agenda will be the following. First, we would like to talk about the reasons why food waste is a problem in the world and at Porsche, and therefore why we need a sales forecast in our restaurants. Second, Jakob will present how the forecast solution and food waste monitoring at Porsche works. And third, Ulf will present our first results after introducing the solution in our restaurants in Weissach. And finally, we'd like to start a small discussion with you about how this solution could be transferred to other companies. Why is food waste a problem? On this slide, we can see some key figures that I wouldn't have believed myself a few months ago. Roughly 1/3 of the world's food raised or prepared doesn't make it from the farm or from the factory to the fork. Losing food is not only an issue of high or low income economies, it's an issue of both. Up to 35% of food in high income economies is thrown away by the consumers. And the food waste generates greenhouse gases at every stage. It's responsible for about 8% of the global emissions worldwide. And also in Germany, and for me this is still unbelievable, around 65 million people, 65 million meals are thrown away every single day. With a population of around 83 million people in Germany, this means that 0.78 meals per day per person is thrown away. And also at Porsche, we are struggling with food waste. Before Corona pandemic, we had a food waste of around 4,300 meals every single day. So what should these two slides tell us? Food waste is not only a problem in low or in high income economies. Food waste is a problem in the whole world, and for sure the food waste is also a problem in Porsche. But the good news is that we should and we can do something about it. And this was the reason why we've set up this project together with Delicious Data to make Porsche and even the world a bit more sustainable. And I think we wouldn't be Porsche if we didn't make the planning and production process in the restaurants more efficient at the same time. So basically, our project has 2 goals, supporting both the sustainability and the efficiency strategy of Porsche with new technologies. And to be concrete, in this context, we're using artificial intelligence and the algorithm of Delicious Data. So Jakob, could you please tell us and show us how the sales forecast and your solution works?
Thank you for the introduction, Patrick. Hello, everybody. So from a machine learning perspective, the hypothesis was for this project was that if we manage to increase the planning accuracy in the business restaurants at Porsche, that would lead to less overproduction, which is caused by planning uncertainty. So basically, the kitchen chef might not know exactly how many dishes are actually going to be sold of each menu, so they would rather plan a little bit more so that they're on the safe side and the guests don't go home hungry. And this overplanning then leads to overproduction, which ultimately leads to food waste if it cannot be sold in some other way in some later context. And so our goal was to increase the planning accuracy. And then as a first step, we looked into how can we, or what are the biggest challenges in terms of planning difficulty, what makes it difficult right now at a Porsche restaurant to plan more accurately. And we found that there was 2 major contributors. So there's first a question of how many guests are actually going to come into the restaurant. And this is kind of difficult right now, and always, but especially right now due to COVID, because it's really difficult to predict the trends essentially of people that like to work at home office or come to the company. And the second aspect is, if we know that the guest is coming, or if we have a fair or good approximation of how many guests are going to come, what will they then end up choosing on the menu? And this is particularly difficult because the menu is changing all the time. It's always a different constellation, and there's over 3,000 different recipes at the Porsche ERP system alone. So there's a high variety of articles and a really low density of sales events in the past. So typical forecasting methods have a really big struggle with that because they tend to require a lot of data. And we then tackled this problem kind of in a similar fashion. So we basically built a machine learning pipeline that then basically modeled this whole decision process of the guest, how many guests are coming and then what are they buying, right? So our first model is predicting how many guests are going to come into the cafeteria, and here we noticed that it was very critical, especially lately, to have models that are reacting very quickly to changes in demands. So it has a fast reaction to changes in trend variables. It's a relatively robust model, and it doesn't require a lot of data, which we don't really have right now because it is kind of a first in history event right now with the ever-changing guest counts right now at Porsche. And then the second model is solving this question of what decision does a guest make when he actually comes into the restaurant. And for this, we tackled it by first enriching the sales data that we had from the historical sales already. So basically, we have long lists of transactions for a couple of years already, and we used an NLP model, a natural language processing based model, to enrich the information of each article. So we have like a description of the article, say pizza margarita, and then we can enrich this with additional tags, say classes like what's the probability that it's Italian, that it has meat on it, that it's a pasta dish, that it comes out of the oven. So we have like 52 different categories that we analyze each sales event from. And then with these categories, we can now put the past behavior of the guests into a context that's more machine understandable. So this allows us to basically understand what kind of an average choice does a guest at each location, each restaurant like to make, because they're not always the same, right? Some restaurants are more of an engineering location, another one is more a production location. So the purchasing behavior is very different. And with this enriched past data, we can then see what decisions people like to make and how different dishes correlate with each other, because if you have 2 menus that are both selling, say, at relatively low price, and they'll have both meat in them, then they sell very differently than if they're the only one, for example. And we implemented this NLP-based process with a deep learning model, and then attached another deep learning model behind it to then model this decision process. Now, the next slide, we can basically see how we then implemented these sales forecasts into our system, which is then visible to the users as a web application. For here, 2 things we looked out for. The first one is it's web-based, so you can access it from different devices. You're not tied to a specific working station. And if you're on the move, you can also see it on our mobile front end, which is also available now. And on the next slide, we can now see the results of this planning accuracy KPI. Patrick, thank you. So what we can see here on the slide is the development of the planning accuracy over the course of the pilot. On the y-axis, we have the average planning deviation in numbers of dishes. To make this a little bit more graspable, I think an example could be, again, let's say a kitchen chef is planning to sell pizza in 2 weeks from now on their menu, and they plan to sell 300 dishes. And now the 2 weeks pass, and then they actually comes in, but they actually ended up selling only 250 dishes. That this would be a planning deviation of 50 dishes. And here on the y-axis, we basically are plotting for each calendar week the average deviation in dishes. So this is a very, I think, intuitive unit that everybody can kind of relate to. And we can see here that in the it's kind of the x-axis is a little bit uninformative, but around halfway in, this was calendar week 36 actually, and the year 2020, the pilot went online and the planning accuracy dropped significantly. So we went from like an average of say around 80 to an average of around 40, in the end even going down to 20. So we approximately improved the planning accuracy, we basically doubled the planning accuracy of the kitchen chefs at the 4 restaurants that we were piloting in. During our project review, we noticed that there was a lot of interest in the KPI. So we built a dashboard, which we can see on the next slide, which basically allowed us to continuously review those KPIs. And every user can arrange the dashboard how they like, and according to the KPIs that are important to them, it's automatically fed from the data. So it doesn't require us to make an interval-based review or something. Everybody can look at their own data, and this is also then extended with KPIs into the future as well. Now, in this case, we noticed kind of obviously that, yeah, cool, we're planning more accurately, but we don't know how much closer we got to the goal of Porsche reducing its food waste. And so this was one of the reasons why we then decided to extend the software with another feature, which Ulf will now present us. You're still muted, Ulf.
Ulf, you're mute.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Jacob. Well, our goal at Porsche was to reduce our food waste up to 60%. So we looked out for some help from other companies to reach this high goal, and there was Delicious Data, one system who reached this, who could help us there. So in the first step, we just measured our food waste in 4 categories, which being the storage, the overproduction, the plate back come, and the food distribution. And after just the measure of the food waste, the waste went already down. So, but we couldn't actually see it. So Jacob and the team from Delicious Data helped us to implement this at the Delicious Data, and we could see it in a dashboard now, and we could improve the results by make some measurings there, and so we just improved every month the measures and could reduce the food waste until 40% in our company in the pilot phase of Porsche. So if we, Patrick, would you just put another slide in? Yeah, thank you. In the pilot phase at Porsche, there have been 4 canteens involved, and we reduced the food waste with Delicious Data again over another 10%, up to 10%. That means that we could save another 140 tons of CO2 emission per year just in the 4 canteens of Porsche. And if we would transfer this to all the canteens at Porsche, would mean that we could save 630 tons of CO2 or 27 million of liter fresh water. So that will be a good goal to reach, and we are all sure that we're gonna make that in the next few months, that we implement the system of Delicious Data, and they will help us to reach this. And I'm sure that we're gonna make it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulf. So here we can kind of see, like, to put these numbers into a bigger context now. We were already able to save 140 tons of CO2 per year at this point with 10% reduction. And if we now calculate this number across all of Germany, we can see that this actually rakes up quite a big number to 425,000 tons of CO2 savings potential, just if we reduce the food waste by 10% alone in all the German players in the food service sector. And this is kind of what motivates us. We want to have a positive impact on the climate as well. And at this point, I would also like to kind of look into the crowd and you know, make everybody think what can they do at what can you do at your business to reduce food waste. And yeah, if you're interested, if you have if you don't even know at this point right now how much food waste do we actually have, or if you know somebody who has an issue, feel free to contact us. And at this point, we're also open for questions. So if you have any questions, like how it worked, what specifics, if you want to go into the nitty-gritty detail, now's a great time for that.
Great, thank you guys. There's a question by Julius. Do you now measure food waste on a daily basis from all 4 defined areas?
Sorry, I couldn't understand you right.
Do you now measure food waste on a daily basis from all 4 defined areas?
Yes, we do. We do that every day, and not only on 4 canteens, on all over the canteens and little shops we have on the factory plants. And all, so we can say every day how much food waste we're going to lose. Yes.
Great, thank you. There's another question. Did you ever experience stock out? So what, like not having food available, or what is the buffer in order to make sure the food desired is available still?
Well, that's one goal of us, that we never run out of food. It's a big challenge. So every head chef of the kitchen will plan a little bit more, and in the average they plan too much. So Delicious Data is helping us to reduce this amount, to make the right decision how much food we are gonna keep in stock per meal. Yeah. So and that's what Jacob is telling us. We reduced there over 40% already to save there and reduce the food waste. Yeah.
Great. Marcel is asking to you, Ulf. You mentioned that monitoring food waste that is not plated but eaten, so that is returned. How do you give feedback to Delicious AI of that?
Well, these 4 categories are being measured separately, and we put that into the system from Delicious Data, and they give they have then the feedback from there. The customers are taking some of the stuff by themselves, and sometimes they put too much on their plate. So that's the reason why there's some leftovers on the plates. But the Delicious Data is Delicious Data have their feedback already in the system by putting it in on the web-based. Yeah.
Hope this answers your question, Marcel. 40% reduction, respect. When you reduce 10% with Delicious Data, how did you reduce the other 30%?
Well, the first saving was just by measuring the food waste. The staff had an idea how much waste we're gonna have every day just by measuring it, to have a feeling for it, how much food waste we're gonna lose every day. That was the first step. The second step was actually to make some improvements in the production, not too much in the forecast to produce too much at the seller point, and to produce the food just on order. So and then the next step was with Delicious Data to save there another 10% on top of it. So the first one was actually just to have the stuff sensible for the food waste. The second was the improvement in the production line, and the third one was Delicious Data. Yeah.
Great. There's another question in the Q&A section. Are you running any campaigns on top to make employees aware? I'm
Yes,
assuming that's directed to like marketing. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We have let's in the internet, in the company internet, we pronounce some how you say.
Yeah, we have a maybe I can help out, Ulf. We have an strategy 2030, and we have a yeah, sustainable strategy or a sustainable part as well, and that we really try to aware every employee about the topic sustainability. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Do we have other questions in the chat? Not right now, it seems. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the process, like how did you kick it off, or kind of what were the main hurdles also in the like startup corporate collaboration that you had to overcome? Share that best practice with the audience.
Project went very smooth. Delicious Data did a really professional job, and it was kind of plug and play. So really cool.
Jacob, anything from your side?
I think one of the bigger hurdles that we experienced was that we made sure that the data that we sent to Delicious Data doesn't have any GDPR overhead attached to it. So it's anonymized sales data. We don't know which employee is buying what, and that I think also made the whole process a whole lot easier with compliance at Porsche, but also just general European Union compliance.
Understood. What do your customers tell about this project? Do you have feedback already?
Well, if you say the customers are the head chefs in the canteens from Delicious Data, they are very happy because we have now one system we can count on and have the knowledge from the older stuff from the past, and the numbers of Delicious Data help us to count better. The customers in the canteens, they don't really realize it because they always have the right amount of food at the counters we can sell, so they don't really see it. And the food waste, we just make sure that the customers are aware of, because we have big signs on in the canteens hanging out to show them how much food waste we actually produce. Yeah.
Great, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, we got about 5 minutes left. Looking at the audience, if there's more burning questions on your side, of course, now is the time to ask. If you're a bit shy, I'm sure there's also the possibility to get in touch with Ulf, Patrick, and Jacob after. You can, I don't know, do you want to be contacted directly? Otherwise, you can also ask through me, and then we'd be happy to make the connection. Right, oh, there's one more question. Is the system from Delicious Data an invest from Porsche to become more sustainable, or does the reduction of food waste pay the cost for AI?
I think it's both of them, because if you see the reduction of food waste, in the first step it will pay the salary of Delicious Data. But if we see in the future, you gonna have not every year the saving amounts you have in the beginning, because you have in the first step you have the saving of food waste, but in the next year you're gonna keep the amount of food waste, and hopefully you keep going on to save it, but not as much. So you're not getting better every year over this amount. So it helps us to keep it that level, and that's the saving of it. And in the mean, you have to save a little bit for the world, and that is gonna. I think that's the money worth. Yeah. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think that basically puts it into context, right? The idea was that we saw that there was a problem with food waste in the food service sector that's intrinsic to difficulty in planning, and our idea was to build a product that allows to reduce this food waste, and then basically leads to this positive impact for the environment, but it also kind of pays for itself, because saving food waste means saving cost of goods, lowering expenses, and therefore it's like a win-win situation. It's not just sustainability or saving money, it kind of actually goes hand in hand, which is not always the case, I think, with ideas in the impact sector, and that's something that we are particularly excited about, and that we also think is kind of the driver for the success.
And on top, I think the planning process in the canteen is more efficient. So
Right.
also the employee costs we save some employee costs. Yeah.
There's another interesting question by Marcel. Do you see differences in delicious data savings in canteens that offer fixed size portions versus self-serve? Anyone?
Mostly, I think that the forecasts are focusing. So I think there's a difference between the benefits that come from monitoring the food waste versus the benefits that come from having a forecasting system of sales. So when we do forecasts, our AI is mostly focusing on the question, how many items am I going to sell right now at Porsche? And Ulf and Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is a possibility, especially for some menu lines, to have a variable amount, but this is not taken into consideration. So this means we're not forecasting the weight of food that's going to get sold, but the amount of plates that are going to be sold, essentially. And the benefit for the forecasts mostly comes into this planning process, into the production process of how many dishes are going to be sold. But if there's a tendency at the guests to maybe overload their plates, this is something that can be easily tracked with food waste monitoring. So then you see, okay, hey, actually all of my waste KPIs are actually fine, but I can see that I have a lot of plate returns. Then this can be tackled completely without forecast. This is something where processes themselves already have a big impact, as we've described earlier. Think in the case of plate returns, it's, for example, possible to assume that, or to think about maybe charging the plates with variable amounts just by weight. That way, there's a psychological inhibiting effect to completely overload your plate. But this is a front where it has a lot to do with how you psychologically set up the offering, I think. Also, yeah.
Great, thank you very much for the clarification. I hope this answers your question, Marcel. Yeah, Ulf, Patrick, Jacob, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience? We've actually, close to the end of it, unfortunately. Any last words or something you would like to share?
Yeah, as you already said, if anybody's interested, you can contact us. You can write us via email. I'm not sure if our emails are visible on the platform, but I'm sure. I'm sure we're going to be able to connect. If you have any questions, reach out.
Thank you very much. Sounds great. Yes, and if there's any other questions or you would like to read more about the collaboration, check out the Expo 10 website. That also outlines the project that they did.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Have a good day.
Have a fantastic day.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye, everyone.